Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel. April 11th, 2018.
Warning: The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to the Savage Nation. I pray to God we're not on the brink of a war, but it looks as though the war machine has gotten control of the Trump administration. The neocons installed the warmonger Bolton, who is not a conservative by any means. He is a war machine, not a peace machine. Look at the headlines we are seeing. Russian TV: world stands millimeters from a great war. Citizens told to prepare to evacuate 2 bomb shelters and what to take into the bomb shelters. Trump says U.S.-Russia relationship worse than it's ever been, even in the Cold War. Report says U.S. set to target 70 different sites in Syria, including ones in which Russian troops are stationed. Syrian chemical attack may be a false flag to start a world war. We don't know who gassed those 40 or 50 people. In fact, it came out minutes ago that the Secretary of Defense, Mattis, just admitted that he's investigating it. He doesn't know. But before he's completed his investigation, the war machine, the war party, is gearing up to destroy anything they can kill in their sights. I say this: a true conservative stands for peace, not war. A neocon who is truly a liberal, faking it as a conservative, puts war before peace. Hundreds of years ago, Thomas Hobbes said the very first law of nature is to seek peace. That is the essence of true conservatism. And I'm not just talking about the absence of military war on the battlefield. I am talking about peace between individuals and groups within society. It's truly the opposite of progressivism, which seeks nothing but conflict. They promote conflict between people of different racial groups, different sexual orientations, and different income levels. They promote conflict between men and women. One of the reasons I worked so hard to get Trump elected is I thought he would be a man of peace. I said, put everything else aside. The most important thing in this world is not the economy, it's peace. Domestic peace, international peace, peace between individuals and peace between nations is far more important than gross domestic product or low interest rates. I have declared to you before, and I will declare to you again today, that I am an anti-war conservative. I know many of you don't understand what those words mean because you think liberals are anti-war, but they're not. As you have seen in the streets of America and on the television sets, liberals are the violent fascists of our time. I thought all these left-wing organizations represented the true danger, not this administration. Candidate Trump was on my show 1 month before the election and said on these airwaves that he'd meet with Putin if he could, even before he was inaugurated. That's how badly Trump wanted to tamp down war talk. The crazy feminist sorority that surrounded Obama was dying for a war with Russia. I led Trump to that commitment with a series of questions I asked him during my show. I've been writing about the demonization of Putin and Russia for years in my books. Let's be clear about it. Putin is no angel, and Russia's interests don't always coincide with ours. But that does not mean we must be enemies or give the forces of darkness in Washington another war to get rich on while the rest of us suffer and our soldiers die for nothing. And that's why I wanted a commitment from Trump to talk to Putin at the earliest possible opportunity. Well, I got it. When I wrote Trump's War, many of you who didn't read the book thought I meant Trump should go to war. But there's a chapter in Trump's War that those of you who bought the book can turn to on page 137, which is entitled Trump's War Against the War Machine. And my savage solutions, clearly laid out, are simple. 1, stand firm on peace with Russia. 2, combat the war propaganda with the bully pulpit. 3, destroy ISIS and then leave the Middle East. 4, bring our troops home from unnecessary deployments. When John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, I was a young man. It was the first year of my teaching in a junior high school. I remember what happened the day that John F. Kennedy died. The country's heart was broken. I lived through it. People on all sides of the aisle were shattered. He was young, idealistic, ambitious, but he was a leader, a great leader. He inspired me. I didn't even know what his party was. I had no idea. Every time that man spoke, I was stirred by John F. Kennedy to do better for myself and my nation. I knew what it was to be a young man and an American who was idealistic. When Kennedy died, it seems as though a part of America died forever. I don't think we've had a leader since John F. Kennedy like him. If John F. Kennedy were alive today, he'd run as probably a Republican. He could never get elected in the left-wing progressive circles of the Democrat Party of today. John F. Kennedy was a conservative in the Democrat Party, a war hero, a leader. Would Kennedy now send a tweet in the early morning of the hour saying, I've got shiny new missiles, look out, we're going to blow you up? I watched a movie last night. I told you I don't go to movies much, but I knew it was the last few nights because I live in the most liberal county in the United States of America most of the time. And I knew the movie would last 3 days, and it's leaving tomorrow. They pulled it into the theaters for 3 days. Nobody was in the theater, so I figured I better catch it on a big screen, Chappaquiddick. I knew the story before I saw it, but that's not what I went for. I didn't go to see it and to bash Ted Kennedy. That's old news. That's cheap. That's a cheap one-pony trick. I went to see it for the historical situation of the occurrence of Chappaquiddick when Ted Kennedy swam away and let Mary Jo Kopechne suffocate to death for 4 hours in that car when he could have saved her. And they intercut this scene, this horrible scene of Mary Jo and him and Kennedy, with the landing on the moon, the Apollo mission, the first one, taking one small step for humanity. Frankly, having lived through that as an American citizen, I was a young man, very young, first year teaching, I was very moved by it in the theater. I choked up remembering those days and how the confluence of the worst of the Kennedys occurred at the same time that a vision of his brother, the best of the Kennedys, was being acted out on the moon. The apogee and the perigee of the Kennedy family at the same time. And I remember living through it, and now I'm living through this. And I said to myself, inside me there is still the same young man, the same idealist, the same young man who understands that the most important thing for a president is to preserve the peace of the world and to protect his people. And I wake up and I see this madness, total insanity. I can't believe what I'm looking at. Is the world about to go to war? Being dragged into a war in Syria based upon no evidence? Theresa May of England even said this morning, wait, slow down. She said, we don't have firm evidence that the Syrians did this. The Russians are asking for an investigation. Who did this? Who gassed these 40 people? It's deja vu. It happened exactly a year ago while the president of China was sitting to dinner with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. Gas attack. Trump was triggered into launching missiles. Shocked the world. No reason for it. And guess what came out today on that prior gas attack? That you were convinced Assad did. You idiots, you morons, you knee-jerk conservative idiots. Bomb him, you said. Bomb him, you said. All you armchair generals. All you fake conservatives in the media. Bomb him. Today, we learned Mattis admitted that there was no evidence Assad used poison gas on his people. This has been lost in the hyperbole of our times. It flies in the face of the White House NSC memorandum, which was rapidly produced and declassified to justify an American Tomahawk missile strike against the Shayrat air base in Syria. Mattis went on to say he doesn't know who did it. Mattis, the military boss, said on record that we have no evidence to support the conclusion that Assad gassed his own people. Mattis impugned the interventionists who pushed the Assad is guilty narrative without sufficient supporting evidence. There is a dissonance then, there's a dissonance now. And I knew this was coming the minute they picked the Walrus. The Walrus signaled he was going to take us to war. Again, going back to this movie Chappaquiddick, even when Ted Kennedy got in trouble by lying about killing that girl, he was surrounded by intelligent men who considered all the possible actions to cover up that crime. I'm not saying they should have. Listen to what I'm saying. Measured, thoughtful people who knew what was going on. In the White House at that time, there were measured, thoughtful people who considered all angles before making statements. Certainly before going to war. It's the most serious thing a president can do, is go to war. So when Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, I took it very seriously. My whole life was motivated by that speech in some ways, now that I think about it. My life every day on the radio is motivated by that speech in some ways, now that I think about it. And my show today is dedicated only to that thought of what I, Michael Savage, can do for my country. And the best thing I can do for my country is to convince you that Trump is 100% wrong if he strikes against Syria. And number two, he's being misled by some of the most dangerous, evil warmongers on the planet, who, if they should lead this country to war again, 1 week after Trump said we're getting out of there, let them take care of themselves 1 week ago. 1 week ago, he tweeted we're getting out of there. We're gone. A week later, the Walrus is installed by some hedge fund manipulators who will profit greatly through war, holding stock, no doubt, in Raytheon and other great companies who make the Tomahawk missile. You think there's no money involved in these decisions? Then you are stupid. It's always about money. I have to take a quick break. At the bottom of the hour, I have a man who's been in the White House, reasoned with the president, knows how it works, and you'll hear what he has to say about these times. His name is Pat Buchanan. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
How many seas must the white dove sail before she can sleep in the sand? How many times...
I worked my butt off to get Donald Trump into the White House. I did so because I thought, A, he could beat her, the battle axe. 2, because the battle axe represented the military-industrial complex and wanted war with Russia. He did not. He was clearly on record, both during the campaign and after he won, as being an isolationist, if you want to call it that. A nationalist is what I would call it, with no foreign wars. I wake up today and I read that he calls Assad a gas-killing animal without evidence. A gas-killing animal without evidence. And then he says, get ready, Russia, because they will be coming nice and new and smart. That's the President of the United States. Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming nice and new and smart. So I tweeted this morning. Yes, the president got me to tweeting over about a year ago. I said, if you can't beat him, join him. So I'll start tweeting. So I got into my tweet thing, my tweet mode, and I tweeted the following. Madness. I warned the world Bolton was a warmonger. who got Bush into Iraq. Why would Assad and Russia gas when winning war? Mr. President, stop before it's too late. Within a few minutes, the Bolt bots, which are machine-driven responses, thousands of them sitting around America somewhere, started attacking me. And then I see an article that was shocking, more shocking than even the president's tweets. From Haaretz.com, one of their little writers, Alison Kaplan-Summer, writes that anyone who is opposing the war is a white supremacist who's defending Russia and Assad. Suddenly, anyone who opposes the war with Russia is an anti-Semite or a white supremacist. I never thought I'd see this kind of rhetoric in the United States of America today, coming out of Israel and America itself. Now we're anti-Semites. Now we work for Russia because we don't want war with Russia. Well, I rest my case. You can say who you want I am, but I know who I am. I know who I work for. I work for only one boss, and that's somebody upstairs who none of us have met. I have to answer to him at the end of every day as I lay my head on a pillow. And I'm going to tell you something. I sleep very well at night. I'm not up at 4:30 in the morning tweeting after eating Twinkies. I sleep through the night because I give it my all during the day. And I'm going to give it my all today because I don't want war with Russia. Now, if I knew that Assad and or Russia definitively gassed their own people, I would not be saying these things. But I am a cautious man by nature, and I want to know what the rush is. The Russians are saying the Americans want to launch Tomahawks in order to cover up the evidence of who actually gassed the people. How do you like that? Did you hear what I just said? That the Russians are saying the Americans want to launch Tomahawks to destroy the crime scene. Now, if you're a cop, do you understand what I'm saying to you on a world stage? I hope you can understand this.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I see trouble on the way. I see
34 minutes after the hour, U.S. President Trump blasts Putin for supporting the gas-killing animal, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Trump appeared to pave the way for imminent airstrikes, tweeting, "Get ready, Russia, because they will be coming nice and new and smart." World braces for war. Russia has sent troops into Duma. Do you understand what's going on? This is no longer a battle between Mueller and Trump where there's no body count. Do you understand what war is? You understand it's not a matter of tweeting, but dying? That there's a difference between an ego battle and a battle on a battlefield? Pat Buchanan wrote a great article at Buchanan.org saying, "Has the war party hooked Trump?" Pat joins us now on the Savage Nation. He's been there and done that. Pat, welcome to the program.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Well, not good today. I'm very concerned that the warmongers have grabbed the steering wheel of this administration. What do you think?
I think you've got a very valid point. I think the President of the United States this morning really painted himself into a box. He has said that the missiles are coming. He has said Assad is a gas-killing animal, and that the Russians ought to know it, and they're morally complicit in what happened. I don't see how Donald Trump now backs down and does not fire the missiles, because he will then be put into the same category as Barack Obama, who had his red line and then refused to do anything to enforce it. So I think we are headed into a military confrontation, and the president is going to launch those missiles. I don't know who's going to be with us, maybe the French. It doesn't look like the British are going to be with us right now. There's a British diplomat, Rex Ford, who was Mr. Ford, who was an ambassador to Syria, who says jihadists staged this thing. There was no real gas killings. And Theresa May has said, we don't have proof that the Syrians did this. And it seems to me, Michael, it would be a horrible mistake to be firing these missiles in the first place and threatening Russia. And in the second place, when we're not even sure exactly what was done and what happened.
Pat, on last week, Trump said we're getting out of Syria, that we're leaving it to them to resolve the problem. On Sunday, the madman, John McCain, implied that Trump's comments about leaving Syria very soon emboldened Assad. And then the other weirdo, the crazy weirdo, Lindsey Graham, said the entire Syrian Air Force should be destroyed. Now, you wrote that such massive an attack by the United States would be an act of war against a nation that has not attacked us and does not threaten us. And you said that Congress, prior to such an attack, should pass a resolution authorizing a U.S. war on Syria. You ever think that Trump will go for a War Powers Act?
Well, the War Powers Act is in effect, but this is a clear-cut look. If we attack Syria, it's airfields, and it's a sustained attack of the kind the president's talking about. Those are acts of war against a country that has not attacked us, has not threatened us, and does not want war with us. Under the Constitution, in order to make that a legitimate war, the Congress has to either authorize or declare the war, and Congress hasn't done it. I mean, where does the President of the United States get the authority to attack Assad or attack the Russians who are in Syria at the invitation of a legitimate government, awful as that government may be? He's got no constitutional authority to do what he's about to do, and the Congress of the United States, which has the authority, is sitting there and doing nothing.
Now, I want to tell the audience, which consists of a wide age range, that Pat Buchanan understands these things from a truly conservative perspective, because if they're listening to you, they'll say, oh, he's just a liberal. Trump's the greatest guy. He's got the guts to do it without Congress. Tell them why they're wrong.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, the United States has gotten into a number of wars. One of them, the Spanish-American War, came about because allegedly the Spanish who occupied Cuba as a colony blew up an American battleship in Havana Harbor. Only we found out later it was the boiler that exploded and killed all those sailors, but that didn't stop us from going into the Spanish-American War. There's a controversy over whether we were actually attacked in the Tonkin Gulf incident, whether those American destroyers, the Maddox and the Sea Turner Joy. I know some of these things, Michael, because I was in the White House the day of the real last Saturday night massacre in the Oval Office when Elliot Richardson was about to come in to be fired, and that was a time when we had another crisis in the Middle East. You had the Yom Kippur War. The Israelis had turned it around thanks to American aids flown in at Nixon's orders, and the Russians were now talking about intervening on the side of Egypt. There was talk that there were nuclear weapons on some warships moving through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles. Kissinger was in Moscow trying to talk sense to the Russians, and so we were defied by Elliot Richardson, who refused to issue an order to the special prosecutor under him. And so that's when the Saturday Night Massacre occurred. Archibald Cox and Elliot Richardson, Bill Ruckelshaus, they went, and Bob Bork got up and fired Cox. So these things, we've been there before. But what bothers me here is that Trump is elected by the American people to keep us out of these horrendous Middle East wars in which we've been involved since 2001 in Afghanistan, 2003 in Iraq, and in Libya, and in Somalia, and in Yemen, and in Syria. And now, if you launch this a strike, there's a real possibility we're in a major war in Syria.
When Trump came along, I backed him 100%. I put him over the finish line because I knew as an outsider he would probably not be a warmonger. I saw him as a man of peace. I don't understand how this war party got control of the steering wheel of the ship of state, Pat. How in the heck did they do this?
I think one thing we shouldn't underestimate is the emotions of Donald Trump. He was clearly, a year ago, when we had a previous attack or alleged attack with sarin gas, he was moved by the sight of these kids who were dead and poisoned to death. And clearly in these tweets, he's calling Assad an animal because he's looking at these pictures or photographs of these dead kids. And those are very moving photos, obviously. But a president of the United States has got to look at the larger picture, and I certainly hope he does. I mean, you're right. I supported Donald Trump for a number of reasons. The border security, bringing the manufacturing base back, making us independent economically again, and keeping us out of these unnecessary wars of choice in the Middle East. I mean, and Trump admitted, he said, you know, he may have said something indicating support for the war in Iraq, but he now realizes it was a grave mistake to send all those troops in there and really smash up that country and lead to ISIS coming in and us having to go back. But now we seem to be marching down that same road again.
Well, when I put in Bolton, I knew things were going to go off the track. I saw this. The minute they brought that maniac in, I knew where we'd be going, and I don't know how or who is behind him. I've learned that it's a hedge fund operator with billions of dollars who put Bolton in there. Apparently, they're thirsty for war profits. They have nothing to do with world peace. It's to do with world profits. How do we get the message to Donald Trump? Do you think he's listening at all? Does he have people? Did Nixon have people who listened to the media and read the newspapers and told him, here's what the New York Times is saying, here's what this commentator is saying, Mr. Nixon? Did Nixon hear about those things?
Sure, I ran the news summary. I was the publisher of it. It was run by Mort Allen. The news summary was on Nixon's desk every single morning, and it was a compilation which could run as high as 50 pages of what was being said on the three major networks, all the major newspapers in America. It had a magazine section that reported on things he had to see, and it had other sections to it, and it would be on his desk when he got there in the morning, and he read it before he read the CIA report. And by now, of course, I mean, in his presidency, the Watergate period, I mean, it was so hostile that often he would throw it over the head of the guy that brought it in. So, but the point is, the president's got to know what's out there and what is going on out there in the country. And I tell you, as I agree with you, I was very much for Trump to win the primaries, and I thought he had a long shot to win the presidency and was elated when he did. And one of the primary reasons was I felt that he would not be, if you will, stampeded into one of these wars.
Yeah. Well, you know, since he likes Twitter, and he seems to be running the presidency by tweets, I, with my little radio show, tweeted madness. I warned the world Bolton was a warmonger who got Bush into Iraq. Why would Assad and Russia gas when winning war? Mr. President, stop before it's too late. Pat Buchanan, when we come back, I want to ask you to tell America that is listening, do you think Donald Trump can now turn around? Can he turn the ship around? Right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Well, it has been said that the only things that are guaranteed in life are death and taxes, and tax season is here, and identity thieves are at it again. According to the IRS, they're filing fake tax returns with stolen personal info, social security numbers they steal. We are all vulnerable, but the Southwest is a particularly bad region for identity theft, with Nevada being the worst state. And while tax fraud is top of mind right now, remember that identity theft can affect Americans year-round. There are so many threats in today's connected world that it just takes one link that is very weak for criminals to get in. Good thing new LifeLock Identity Theft Protection has added the power of Norton Security to help protect you against threats to your own identity and to your own devices that you can't easily see or fix on your own. So if you have a problem, they have agents who will work to fix it. We all know no one can stop every cyber threat or prevent all identity theft or monitor transactions at all businesses. But new LifeLock with Norton Security is able to uncover threats you might otherwise miss. So go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock and use promo code SAVAGE, and you're going to get an additional 10% off your first year. Did you get it right? 1-800-LifeLock, promo code SAVAGE, for a big 10% off. We're dealing with an issue of war and peace on the world stage. A week ago, the president said, we are leaving Syria. Leave it to them to work it out. We all cheered him. It's why we elected him. No foreign wars, no foreign entanglements. Then we wake up and he says he's got shiny new weapons that he's going to use against the animal Assad. And Russia has told its citizens what to bring into the bomb shelters. You have any idea what this is? Do you understand this is like the Cuba Missile Crisis right now? This is as big as it gets. It's insane right now. We're living in total insanity. Pat Buchanan was in the White House. He worked with Nixon. He knows how the corridors of government work. Pat Buchanan, line 10. What do you think Trump should do now?
I think Trump should reflect and see if he's a big enough man, quite frankly, to try to climb down from the threat he has issued, the virtual ultimatum he has issued. There's four ways he can do it. First, he ought to, in his meeting, I would rely on Kelly and Mattis and Pompeo rather than Bolton. Secondly, he should say we want the folks who are international folks on the prevention of the use of chemical weapons, want those folks in there to verify these weapons were used. Third, he should call upon the Congress of the United States to authorize or declare war or authorize him to attack, to buy some time and not to attack. And so I think he ought to do those. And he ought to have a deconfliction strategy with the Russians in Syria. We should be talking to them. I think you should be talking with Putin. But you got to realize here, Michael, there are people in Washington, D.C. who want this war, who want a conflict with Russia in Syria, and with Iran in Syria, and with the Syrians, who feel that belongs to us, and we ought not let the Russians and the Iranians and the Shia and Hezbollah have it. So the president, if he wants to avoid a conflict, and I think he should, he's going to have to come back in off that limb.
It's a very interesting statement that you make. You started by saying, well, when I said, what should Trump do? You said he should show he's a big enough man to back down. Isn't that what you really said? Isn't that what you said?
And to show he's a big enough man to realize he's made a mistake and not to double down by taking us to war in order to justify and back up that mistake.
Oh, boy. Boy, do you read people. But having read people for so long and having been in the White House for so long, what do you actually think is going to happen?
Well, Nixon listened. I mean, Nixon, I know what people say about him, but you would go in there and Nixon would be going off the handle saying something, and you partially agree with him, say, but these are the consequences, and you find out the next morning he calls you up and says, maybe we ought not to move that way. I don't know. I mean, from what I've seen, I don't know Donald Trump as well as you do. But from what I've seen and from the way he looks in these last couple of days, he is very angry. He's mad, and justifiably so, over that raid on his lawyer, grabbing all those documents. But he's got to realize that, look, he has the capacity or the ability of the possibility of taking his country into a conflict with Syria where there are going to be an awful lot more dead children.
I thought about that. Let's say there were 40 dead from the gas attacks, if there were gas attacks, and it was not staged. How many might die if we get into a conflict with Russia and Iran, and then Hezbollah moves against Israel, and Israel now escalates its presence in the Middle East? What happens then, Pat? It'll be certainly more than 40 dead bodies on the ground.
Well, this could escalate very rapidly. And I think the way it would go is, look, the Russians, you put Putin on the line. You've challenged his manhood and his nationalism by saying, watch these missiles, the smart stuff we're going to send right through your air defenses. And you start killing Russians. And Putin is known for one thing, that's for standing up for his country in any kind of crisis or conflict. Why he wins elections with 70 or 80% is because whatever the Russian people think of his character, they believe he stands up for Russia. And I don't.
Okay, listen, Pat, you're the best guest I've had in years. Could you stay with us at the top of the hour? Pat Buchanan, go to Buchanan.org. If you can, I will see you on the other side of the break.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Thank you for listening to the show on Really Big Something Channel.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.